The Federal Communications Commission regulates interstate and international communications by radio, television, wires, and satellite across the United States. Ostensibly an independent government agency, the FCC has overseen the American airwaves since the 30s. Now, the Trump administration is weaponizing the agency to attack news organizations critical of the president with the help of its aggressive new chairman. Welcome to the politics of New America. On the show today, we look at the FCC, where it came from, who's in charge, how it's being used to silence the president's critics, and why things might just get worse in the future. I'm your host, Nathan Stone, and with me as always is producer Josh Carmody.
So I remember the FCC being sort of the target of jokes of shows like Family Guy and The Simpsons for being something that was coming after them for, trying to censor silly adult cartoons. And now I find out that it's a wing of the Trump administration for silencing his critics, which is wild.
Yeah, times keep on changing on us. I really remember the FCC from being a big Eminem fan as a tweenage boy. And as we remember, the FCC wouldn't let him be in the Without Me classic. And so, yeah, I think that's what a lot of people think about the organization. It's a little bit almost anachronistic, a little bit, right? Because you think of enforcing moral standards and policing the radio waves, because who listens to the radio anymore? But the FCC is actually really important to the lives of Americans. But it's a background organization, so you don't really think of it too much. And you shouldn't really. It's a regulatory board for radio, TV, satellite communications, right? It's there so that everything works the way it should and that you don't have whatever society deems as obscene content filtering into your airwaves, right? We wouldn't want poor little Josh to be, corrupted by the heinous things that would be on our airwaves, if not for the good folks at the FCC. But more seriously, it's a independent federal government agency, and I want everyone to see independent in the biggest scare quotes that you can, because as we're going to see, the FCC is a very political organization and has been that way for a long time. It just hasn't had the kind of aggressive oversight that we're getting now, and it's really being turned into a wing of the Republican Party, and then more so a wing of the executive to just silence those who are critical. But before we get into any of that, any of the important stuff that's happening, it's worth kind of looking at the history for a little bit and just kind of seeing how this all came into being.
So, prior to now, and maybe nothing has changed in this regard, are the people that are running the FCC appointed by the current federal government, or could they have been appointed by a past one and you just sort of get a lifetime appointment? Like, what's
a great
what's
question.
going on with in terms of where their loyalty may lie? I'm curious about that.
So the FCC is overseen by 5 commissioners. Those commissioners are appointed, and they have to go through a nomination process like many high-level public servants. So, for example, you're gonna go through the Senate. You're gonna get questioned on your history, on your decisions, what you believe in, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Usually,
what's your religion?
Yeah,
how
all
long
the
you've been
important
married?
A lot of times in past administrations, this is the kind of thing you would have never really heard about because no one super cared.
Yeah.
It's only if an administration has really strong plans for the FCC that you would see any kind of real media attention to appointing FCC commissioners. Of those 5 commissioners, one of them is appointed chairman. And so we're going to hit on Brendan Carr, who is the current and making all the news. He's the FCC chairman currently. And but the way it works is each commissioner is appointed to a 5-year term.
Mm-hmm.
There are options to extend those terms, and we'll see some of the current ones have been extended through multiple administrations, but that's kind of the way it works. Also, if you are divvying up these commissioners, a maximum of 3 can be from a single political party. So you're allowed to have a majority, but you're not allowed to stack the entire FCC commission with just Republicans or just Democrats.
Okay.
So right now we're actually in a really interesting place because there are only 4 commissioners. There's a vacant seat, and they're the outgoing chairman before Carr. She left. She was a Democrat, and they're in the process of replacing her. She will be replaced by a Republican to make that swap from, there used to be 3 Democrats during the Biden administration. Now there will be 3 Republicans during the Trump administration. And none of these things are out of the ordinary. It's more on what the chairman is doing, but also what a couple, like the other Republican commissioner is doing and saying, that kind of makes people worry about this. So we're back in 1934. FDR did a lot of stuff, had to do a lot of stuff. He established the FCC through the Communications Act of 1934 to replace what had been the Federal Radio Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And this made it a lot more broad. And 34, you can kind of see where not so much television, but cinema, that kind of thing was coming in. They were looking forward. There was developing technologies. So it made sense to kind of replace this one that was looking at directly radio airwaves and be like, communications. It's going to happen. People are going to have telephones in their homes. People are going to have little tiny cinema boxes. It's going to be great, but we need to regulate
and I would imagine at this time you get a lot of smaller subset, like affiliates of radio things popping up across the country. And so it's not just, oh, we're picking up NBC or, oh, we're picking up whatever, like coming from the East Coast or from the West Coast. It's all these little ones that start to becoming affiliates, and they start filling out with their own personalities. And so there's more and more people, and it's not just a monoculture of these few, it's everybody else who's working across the country.
Yeah, there's kind of golden age radio vibe to the creation of the FCC, right? It was still kind of the king of communication. Initially, it was 3 divisions: broadcasting, telegraph, and telephone. And then it would expand kind of throughout to what we have today, which I'll go over in a minute, but which is quite a bit broader than that. The FCC, it operates under a public interest mandate, which was first laid out even before it was created in 1927. And if you've listened to other episodes of this podcast, and I hope you have, you'll notice a theme. And that theme is when the United States creates legislation, or when they create organizations, or when they create just about anything, they have these great terms. These great terms like public interest. It's a great term. We love public interest. It's in the interest of the public. I'm part of the public. You're part of the public. We love that. They never define their terms, right? We've talked about this so many times on the radio.
It's definitely come up a lot of just, it's like, nice broad strokes.
Yeah. So this is from the official Congress, United States Congress website describing the FCC and what it does. And I wanted to read this verbatim because it's honestly unintentionally quite funny, and it really does kind of prove the point of the problems around not defining your terms. The FCC operates under a public interest mandate first laid out in the 1927 Radio Act. But how this mandate is applied depends on how the public interest, in scare quotes, is interpreted. Some regulators seek to protect and benefit the public at large through regulation, while others seek to achieve the same goals through the promotion of market efficiency. The promotion of market efficiency, in this case, means deregulation. So, yeah, the Congress itself is just like, well, sometimes we like to regulate things, sometimes we like to deregulate things, and
sometimes just throw it to the wind.
Go crazy with it. Yeah, get a little crazy sometimes.
I think we're dealing with an AI right now, I think is what they've decided, is that they're like, no, for the next 4 years, let's not regulate AI at all. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
So, like, real wait and see energy.
Mm-hmm. So I find that frustrating and humorous in equal measure.
Yeah.
But so when we think of the FCC, we might think of a couple of different points in history. For the most part, it's a very background organization, and it's really the type of organization we would never ever talk about, except in that it's become such a powerful force very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give you kind of an idea of the things that it used to do, and important things, but again, background things. In 1941, they issued the Report on Chain Broadcasting. And the major point in that report was the breakup of the National Broadcasting Company, NBC, which ultimately led to the creation of ABC, the American Broadcasting Company. This is the kind of thing that the FCC could do in the background that really does make a huge difference in how Americans consume media, right? The idea of monopolies and consolidation of media was something that the FCC could and did tackle, and made it easier for network affiliates to kind of do their own thing, and kind of changed rules around how everything worked with these big companies and their smaller affiliate stations, and kind of equalize things, which was really good. Then all the way to 1996, under the Clinton administration, it was the Telecommunications Act of 1996. It was very heavily supported by the major corporations in the telecommunications sector. And what it did was it added the internet to
That's important. We love the internet.
We love the internet. It added that to kind of the mandate. But the stated intention of the law was let anyone enter any communications business, to let any communications business compete in any market against any other. Which, again, sounds good if you take it at base level of more competition, more choice for people. Great. Awesome. What actually happened...
Yeah, I was going to say, just before you get to what I'm sure is what you're going to say, there's such an disingenuous, altruistic tone with that of like, oh no, the market will sort itself out. You'll just have so many options. Meanwhile, they're like behind closed doors being like, hey, let's just all be one company. Like people are just not trustworthy enough with this kind of power.
Yeah.
This is why we have checks and balances.
So, Josh, you're about to be proven right here. In practice, it gave way to what was one of the largest consolidations of telecommunications in history. So tons of companies shrank as they got bought up.
Yeah.
Now, as an example for people, iHeart Media, iHeartRadio, you probably heard of it. They own something like 860 odd radio stations in the United States. They are the biggest, but there's others, there's a handful of others that own hundreds of stations. And it's really unfortunate. As someone who has worked in and around radio, the consolidation of this makes everything less bland, or more bland, less community focused, less authentic, right? You have so much more that is done in syndication. You'll have a morning show that might be done in one place and then broadcast to 20 or 30 other markets, whereas before that you would have had those 20 or 30 markets all having their morning shows and all kind of different and flavorful, and so it is sad to see. And it's not just an American problem. In Canada here, it's the same way.
We love monopolies here.
We
apparently.
love monopolies.
And even just outside of the radio bit that you were talking about, it's in TV as well. And so even where with the TV, they don't always just ship out the as you said, the morning shows. They'll have all their own people, but everyone will be given the same script. And there is times where you can watch compilations of affiliates across the country all reading the same stuff, and so it's like, okay,
yeah,
put another face on it. But yeah, it's
exactly. So just before we get off of the 90s, Bill Clinton was easily one of the most successful Republican presidents in history. He really was. The guy was just...
But wait, Nathan, I thought he ran as a Democrat.
Yeah, you know what? You could be tricked by the fact that he did, in fact, run as a Democrat. But my goodness, the man was a deregulation machine, cut the federal service by thousands and thousands, set up the Great Recession by allowing investment banking and personal banking to merge into this awful beast.
Yeah, their banking regulations went absolutely buck wild. And I mean, that one of the reasons Canada kind of came out the other side of the 2008 financial crisis better than other places, it wasn't felt here, is that our banks are regulated very differently from theirs, and that just some of that stuff just couldn't happen here.
Yeah.
But it's wild, like going back and looking at the details of like how that stuff was allowed to happen.
Yeah, but yeah, enough about Bill. Bill's. I mean, we can.
We didn't talk about Bill in the last episode too. Yeah, we gotta get away from him.
Yeah. But the last kind of one I want to use to illustrate kind of what the FCC is and what it does and why it's important is net neutrality. And this is one that our listeners are probably the most familiar with because it's the most recent of the big one. Yeah. So the net neutrality kind of. It didn't become an issue right away, right? Like you get that 1996
.com bubble.
Yeah. Well, you get the .com bubble, and in 1996, the FCC starts kind of looking at the internet as part of its mandate of service. But it wasn't until 2005 where a court case actually kind of forced their hand on being like, okay, what do we do with internet service providers? Can they decide to have like preferred sites, preferred, clients, that kind of thing? Or do they have to take all traffic equally? And the way it ended up was that the FCC got to make the decision. And it got to make the decision because of the Chevron defense. So please bear with me here. The Chevron defense is basically it was a landmark lawsuit back in 1984, and the important thing to know about it is that it set forth that U.S. federal courts must defer to a government agency's interpretation of a law or statute, and all that means is they decided these people are the experts. Let them interpret the rules, right? So it basically just gave government agencies the teeth to say, no, we know how this works. Like, this is our job. Yeah. We know how this works. We know how we're going to apply this. We know what the law means. Because that's all these federal agencies are doing is applying existing law. So it gave them the freedom of interpretation and trusted them to be the experts on the subject matter. So the Chevron defense got overturned recently. But
all right.
But before that,
cool, yeah.
So before that, net neutrality had kind of gone back and forth depending on who was in power.
Yeah.
So the
And
Democrats generally
I
support it.
assume you're getting to it, but kind of during Trump's first term, we saw the big net neutrality debate come up.
Yes. Yeah, and that was a function of the political nature of the FCC. It's an independent organization in name only. When you have a change in administration, especially if it is a radical change, right? Like the difference between going from Obama to Trump, right? Like that's a huge swing. So when that happens, you get kind of these overnight flips on what the agency is looking for, what it strives, what it believes in. So all that having been said, the FCC, as we can see, has a lot of influence over the entertainment and communication kind of consumption of Americans, even if you don't think about it that much, right?
Well, it's like what I said at the beginning. I always kind of took it as something that was more heavily involved, at least in terms of visible ways we saw it in our lives, or at least for Americans, though we get a lot of American TV here, was shaping what acceptable American culture to show on TV is. And that's really all I ever thought of it as being for. It was just like, how much of someone's breast are you allowed to show on TV at what time of day? And depending on what channel you're watching, that's wildly different. So, but that was kind of what I always took it as. But yeah, it's clearly different now.
Yeah. So the FCC of today is organized into 7 bureaus. Each one is headed by a chief that's in turn appointed by the chair of the commission. And the way this works too is that each commissioner will oversee some number of these 7 bureaus, and at least for a few of them, multiple bureaus. So the 7 bureaus, there's the Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau. This is kind of the forward-facing one. So complaints department, right? If you saw a bum on television, you didn't think a bum was appropriate to be seen at that time. These would be the people
They're
you'd
called
talk to.
homeless people, Nathan. Let's calm down.
There's the Enforcement Bureau. This is the teeth of the FCC. So the ones that
Go in
enforce the
and
rules.
shut your show down for showing a bum.
That's right. Media Bureau develops and recommends and administers policy around electronic media, including cable television, broadcast television, and radio. The Space Bureau, which is the newest bureau, I think 2023 is when that came into being. But it licensing matters related to satellite and space-based communications and activities. So...
thankfully not what I thought it was going to be about. I thought it was going to be something dumber. I'm glad I'm glad it's at least something that sounds useful.
It's not quite the what is it? The Space Force?
Yeah.
Space Force, yeah. There's the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, which is what it says on the tin. It handles wireless telecommunications. Then there's the Wireline Competition Bureau, and if you're wondering what wireline means in this, think old school landlines. There's still a lot of them around, and someone's got to look after them, so I assume probably not the absolute premier spot to work in the FCC, if I had to guess.
No, man. Who's holding on to that? Like, someone must have an immaculate pension waiting for them. It's just working on those phone lines. Bless their heart.
And finally, the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau, which was launched in 2006, with a focus on kind of safeguarding critical communications infrastructure and maintaining that. So
makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of what the FCC is today, and everything they do around it. Now, we got to get into the kind of juicier parts here. Who is running this show? Well, like we said, we've got the chair, and they are aided by the commissioners. The 5 commissioners are appointed by the president, and they are confirmed by the Senate for 5-year terms. And then the president will designate one of the commissioners as chairperson. No more than 3 of those commissioners may be members of the same political party, and none may have a financial interest in any commission-related business. What a great rule that is. Can you imagine if Congress had to follow a rule
Oh, like they
that?
weren't allowed to trade stocks?
Yeah.
Like a bunch of greedy, bug-eyed salamanders? Yeah, I wonder what would happen.
Yeah. So, currently, there are 4 commissioners. That's because there is a vacant seat as the result of former chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel, her resignation. Right now, the chairman is Brendan Carr. There is a Democratic commissioner, Jeffrey Starks, Republican commissioner, Nathan Symington, and Democrat commissioner, Anna Gomez. And President Trump already has a nominee for the empty seat, and that is Olivia Trusty, who is a Republican. And these people are names you're not going to know them unless you're a real political sicko. In which case, congratulations, I love it. But for most of us, these people aren't necessarily people you're going to know.
I would like to be a political sicko, so if you have some info on any of these people, let's
yes.
roll some of it out
right.
here, please.
So we're going to start with the most boring one. And no offense to Mr. Starks here, Jeffrey Starks.
Hey, on this show, you want to be the boring one.
You do want to be the boring one, yeah. You want to get the least time that you can here. He's, as I said, Democrat, lawyer. He was nominated during the first Trump administration, got a second term from Biden, but he is retiring this spring. And Jeffrey is interesting because there's 2 Democrats right now, right? There's him and Anna Gomez. He is the quieter of the 2. Anna Gomez has been out there beating the drum, as we'll see, for warning everyone about what is going on at the FCC right now. Jeffrey's been keeping his head down a little bit, but he did issue a statement in opposition to the chair, Brendan Carr's letter to Verizon Wireless. And so Carr wrote them a strongly worded letter about ending their DEI policies. This is, I would say, wildly inappropriate for an FCC chair to do because it has nothing to do with the FCC and their scope of work. However, he did it. And Verizon actually did end those policies. Now, the reason why Verizon was so quick to say, oh, yes, FCC, we will do this for you, despite the fact that you have no legitimate way to make us do this, is that they were in a merger with Frontier Communications. Because the FCC, they're a telecommunications company, the FCC has to okay mergers between these companies. And so basically, with this letter, Brendan Carr was saying, hey, be real shame if your merger was delayed for just a really long time. And it's kind of old school shakedown tactics. But what's tremendously, I don't want to call it clever. I don't want to reward
Let's not do
this.
work for him.
Yeah. But what makes it work is that the Republican Party, the Trump administration, has realized that the FCC can cost these telecommunications companies billions of dollars by just dragging their feet, launching investigations, right? Making their life hard. And what's kind of diabolical about it is that they don't even have to go to court. They don't have to fight them in any sort of legal sense.
Just all this political implications.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the way that they can delay and disrupt these businesses means that it's in their interest, the business's interest, to just cave.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, they have to explain to shareholders why this multi-billion-dollar merger where everyone's going to make a ton of money isn't happening or is delayed until they don't know when.
And we've also seen just the whims of Trump when it comes to defying kind of just by one example, the sweeping get rid of DEI orders, places that have decided not to have been targeted by other organizations and by other laws and things that have come through. So it's not only one thing, it's the first volley that you're avoiding. Yeah.
This is what Jeffree Starks was opposing, and it seems like where he's kind of outgoing, he's got one foot out the door. He's not being overly critical. He did criticize this particular move, but compared to his contemporary Anna Gomez, he's been very quiet, and so he might have other political aspirations that are keeping him kind of, quieter than she is. But he's gone very shortly. He's actually retiring this spring, so we don't really need to talk about him anymore. This one is much more interesting though, because we're going over to the Republican side.
Okay.
Nathan Symington, also a lawyer, Republican. He worked in the private sector at Brightstar Corp, a international mobile device services company, for a long time before this job. He was nominated during the first Trump administration, and his term has been extended to 2026. So he got a couple extra years on that. Now, one of the things that is unique about this generation of Republicans is that if you wait long enough, they'll often just kind of brag about what they're doing and why they're doing it. Like, I feel like back in, think of like the neocon days, right? Like the Cheney era, Bush era. I think those Republicans had a little bit more, I'd call it decorum, but also just a sense of like,
they were better liars.
Yeah. Not only better liars, but I think there was still the thought of, if people know what we're up to, we might get in trouble.
Yeah.
And I think that sense is gone with this particular generation. And the reason why I say this is to preamble this little article that Symington wrote alongside another gentleman for the National Pulse, which is just a online news outlet. And this, to get a sense of his thoughts, right? And this is a commissioner of the FCC. And this is the headline. Trump versus CBS is just the start. Here's how to hit the fake news where it really hurts. So yeah, just from that, I mean, we get a sense of what he thinks.
I also, just before you continue quoting this man, I just want everyone to know that since I've heard the name Nathan Symington, I've only thought Nathan Simeon, and I just keep picturing Dr. Zaius. So I just want all of our listeners to also picture Dr. Zaius saying this. That's a character from a movie from the 60s called Planet of the Apes. Look it up.
And honestly, I've seen this guy's picture a dozen times now, and he's a dead ringer. So here's the opening paragraph. I'm only going to go the opening paragraph. We don't need to hear the rest of it, but it spells out so clearly and perfectly what the Trump administration is doing with the FCC. President Donald J. Trump has once again thrown down the gauntlet against the corporate media, this time by taking CBS to court. His bold litigation has exposed what millions of Americans already know. The mainstream media is not a neutral institution, but a political weapon used to silence, smear, and control. But we must go beyond the courtroom to move from outrage to reform. It's time to hit fake news where it hurts the most, financially. So, this, I mean, I'd call it a mea culpa, but it's really just a brag.
Yeah.
They're just flexing at this
point. And
point.
especially, there's so much of this stuff out there where people are sort of speaking on the behalf of Trump's actions and the way they have to talk about them as if it was he ran across a battlefield carrying the American flag and stabbed it into the heart of the demon known as CBS. Like it's so over the top and so much more ridiculous. They make it sound more ridiculous than it even is, but like, or I shouldn't say more than it even it is. They make it sound ridiculous in a different way than it is.
Yeah.
Like,
What's wild about this is when you're hearing something like this, yes, it's bombastic, it's utterly wild as a thing to write, but it also, it kind of gives up the game, right? I've heard a good term that has been bandied about, which is every accusation is an admission.
yeah.
And,
Yeah, I've heard that one for a bit, yeah.
yeah, and a political weapon used to silence, smear, and control would be the perfect new slogan for Trump's FCC. It's not even remotely doing what it was intended to do, right? In the public interest, that was the goal. But we didn't define public interest, and what the administration defines and Brendan Carr and Nathan Symington define as the public interest is Trump's interest.
It's what Trump wants.
Yeah.
And then that's why we have these kind of speeches that people have to do on his behalf, because Trump just wings it. Like, I don't think Trump has ever had a speechwriter. I guess maybe for his first inauguration or something, but like, I don't think I've ever heard the man like read something I would count as like, Bush clearly had speechwriters. Obama clearly had speechwriters. You can be like, okay, they're trying to say something that reaches into the emotional, core of the American public to be a leader. And Trump can't say those things. He can only say what's on his mind. So everyone else is trying to fill this void and saying these things to make his actions sound like things that are good for you and things that are good for America. But then he immediately betrays all of that, like, I guess, goodwill, by saying completely the opposite. So they then all look like charlatans. And as you said, they kind of give it all up immediately. Like we can see the rabbit in the hat.
I think the saddest job in Washington might be Trump's speechwriter. Like, you've probably prepared something immaculate for him, and he's never going to look at it.
Never sees the light of day. Trump wipes his mouth with it and throws it in a wastebasket.
The best you could probably do is give him like a Post-it note with some bullet points and hope for the best.
I think the best we get is when people post on Twitter for him. I think is what it is. There was the Twitter post just recently where he talked about Biden getting cancer, and it's clearly he did not write that.
Yes. So that's Nathan Symington. I feel like he is best summed up by his work. Also, in case you're wondering, that was published on May 21st. So this is very contemporary. This is how he feels.
Yeah.
This is what they're doing. Now, Anna Gomez, and I do feel sorry for her because, Trump's nominee is going to come in, right? Jeffrey Sparks is leaving. She is going to be the only Democrat for a little while on the FCC until another one can be brought in. And even then, they're going to be in the minority for God knows how long.
Yeah.
She has been a crusader for the past little while and really trying to raise the alarm about what is happening. Now, as I said, she's a Democrat, also a lawyer. I should just say everyone's a lawyer here because it's basically true. She worked in both the public and private sectors before becoming a commissioner. Nominated during the Biden administration in 2023. Her term ends in 2026. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say she's not going to be extended.
No.
And so she recently, to highlight the types of things she's been saying, she recently gave remarks at the 2025 Media Institute Communications Forum. And this was on May 15th, so just last week or so.
Yep.
And I'll just read her first couple paragraphs here. Our current political moment poses challenges unlike anything I thought I would face as an FCC commissioner. The administration has been on a campaign to censor and control since, well, before day one. And since day one, the FCC has been implementing the will of this administration and undermining the First Amendment at every turn. The First Amendment has protected our fundamental right to speak freely and to hold power to account since 1791. It is foundational to our democracy. Today, the greatest threat to that freedom is coming from our own government. Pretty damning.
Oh, yeah.
And she is kind of the lone commissioner really speaking out about what's happening. And luckily, commissioners are very independent, as you can tell, right? They have wildly different opinions.
Yeah.
However, being in the minority where she is going to swiftly find herself, other than acting as a warning and trying to do what good she can with the portfolios that she has, she is likely going to be pretty hard sidelined in the FCC. Now, that leaves us with one vacant seat. The nominee for that is Olivia Trusty. She's a Republican. She's interesting because she doesn't have a big political background to kind of look at. She's a congressional staffer.
Okay.
So dialed in, and of course to
How
get
old
this
is she?
job you'd have to know people. I don't know. She seems like she's young politically.
Yeah.
Which could mean 30s, early 40s.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For sure.
She worked in telecom as an advisor. Looking at her Senate disposition when she's being questioned, she seems kind of like your bog standard Republican rather than MAGA or anything like that. She doesn't seem like a crusader. She seems like small government efficiency, kind of that classic Republican, I want to say. Now, that being said, would she be nominated if she wasn't going to back Carr and the administration? I don't think so. I don't think that's a thing that happens.
Based on everything else that's been going on, no.
So
I'd be pretty surprised if this was the one that slipped through the cracks where it's like, oh, damn, we nominated someone with a conscience. Oh, God. Well, it really threw a wrench in everything we were up to.
Is she likely to write, flexing articles like Nathan Symington? Maybe not. I don't know. She's not there yet. It does look like her nomination is gonna go through.
I mean, what honestly would stop it at this, like, because they have so much control, like, what could really even stop it at this point?
You would need to have something come out in her past, probably, that would make her unpalatable to the Republican Party.
Good luck. Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So she's good. She's confirmed. Okay.
So that leads us to the man in charge, Brendan Carr, the Mad King of the FCC, as I have coined him. So who is he? Well, he's a lawyer. A lot of lawyers. He's of course been chairman of the FCC since January of this year, already made quite a name for himself. He's actually been a commissioner since 2017. Now, for that to have happened, he nominated by the first, Trump administration, they put him in as a commissioner. He was renominated by Joe Biden in 2023 for a new term expiring in 2028. And he was the Senate confirmed his nomination in September of 2023. What's startling about this and is that, yes, you have to have Republicans in the FCC. That's part of the rules, right? You get the Republicans, you get Democrats. But they didn't need to extend him. And in fact, it seemed like even at the time, back in 2023, everyone kind of knew what his game was, what his deal was. And Wired magazine wrote a fantastic article about Brendan Carr. And I'm just going to read a small quote from it. When I was at the White House, he was like a thorn always trying to make all kinds of weird MAGA moves, says Tim Wu, who was Biden's special assistant in tech policy. We refused to have anything to do with him because he was playing by a different rulebook. He was less like a commissioner and more like a random podcaster. Now, as a random podcaster, I am a little offended.
Well, yeah, I am a little bit too. Let me give me 5 minutes with this guy in a room.
But this is so frustrating to read because if you knew he was MAGA, if you knew he was a weirdo and playing by different rules, why in the world was he renominated by the Democratic Party?
I think there's a few examples that we could probably go and pull up of the Biden administration being far too diplomatic about reaching across the aisle, especially with MAGA people. I mean, they didn't really change much at the border in terms of how people were being detained and stuff. So there's like a few weird things in there where they're sort of playing the older game of like, okay, well, we can't just come in and change every single thing. We have to let them have a few things, or they won't let us have a few things next time. But they're not playing by that rule book at all. Yeah. Like, I think it's like really all in their faith was misplaced.
Mm-hmm. It is very much that, and it's frustrating to see that the Biden administration in so many ways was almost a caretaker administration between Trump presidencies. They got a few wins. They did some things, and some things that are not insignificant, but so much of that now is either in jeopardy or just going to be lost again.
Yeah.
But it's so frustrating, and I'm the last person to support the Democrats. I am. There is no American political party for me. In case anyone is wondering,
I like some of the people they got in. Like, I like Bernie and I like AOC. Like, they are clearly for the people, much further left than what the actual Democrats are like. And AOC does have a lot of interesting things to say about the internal workings of the Democratic Party and why they keep kind of failing at these, power takeovers and getting things through, is that they play with kid gloves. They also all have a bunch of money tied up in stocks. And they also are really obsessed with seniority. And that, like, people, like, new people coming in that are really progressive and can have good ideas and probably would get more people to vote, don't get into positions of power because they're like, oh, well, no, this guy who's 87 and dying of cancer, he really needs to fulfill this role for his last 3 months of his life. Because there was that guy that won out the spot over AOC and then died in less than a year. Like,
yeah. If I can digress just for a moment, I think a lot of people who aren't dialed into American politics kind of misidentified what the last federal election was about. Because a lot of times you think of American politics and you think of Democrats versus Republicans, right versus left, or right versus less right.
Yep. Donkey versus elephant.
Donkey versus elephant. And it really wasn't. And you can even go back to this, and it's been developing, I think, since the first Trump term, and maybe even before that with the Tea Party movement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure, the Tea Party movement, yeah.
What you voted for was institutionalism versus anti-institutionalism, right? You voted on, do we believe that the institutions of the American government are serving their purpose? Are they still viable? That's what we voted. I say we, but that's what you voted on.
The royal we.
The royal we. It was never a left versus right. The Democrats ran so far right that when I saw the commercials for it, I honestly didn't know until the person came on and I'm so and so and I'm running for Democrat.
When they were parading around with the Cheneys and all that stuff. Yeah, that was weird.
It was weird. And you would see now a lot of these were probably Democrats in Republican states, but the Democrats campaign on border security. I remember seeing a commercial proudly talking about how they voted to fund the police even more so, right? The
Yeah.
Democrats in this, they ran like the Republicans would have run in the 90s. But the election, what it really came down to in my mind was, do you want the right-wing party that is the caretakers of these American institutions that you know, maybe they'll throw you a bone, but we're going to keep what we've been doing for the last umpteen decades? Or do you go with the party that no longer believes that these institutions are important and wants to change the country to suit a new vision? And the new vision, it won out. And so this is the kind of thing that we get. And the Democrats, to bring this all back to what we were talking about, the Democrats are still playing that old game. You know, the institutions, they're the dog with the fire.
Yeah.
The "this is fine" dog. The institutions are crumbling around them. They don't know how to defend them. They've been tremendously ineffective at doing it. And now you see stuff like this happening with the FCC because the institutionalists are gone. They're out. They're out of power. And the new guys that are coming in don't care what the FCC stood for. They don't really care about its intended purpose. They're going to use it to their own ends. And that is Brendan Carr in a nutshell. He is a new school MAGA Republican. The dude wrote the chapter on the FCC for Project 2025.
Oh, boy.
Which, as we all remember, Trump knew nothing about.
Yeah.
It's just this weird coincidence that the authors keep finding themselves in positions of power.
And just to add on what you said about the Democrats and how they ran their campaign and how they continue to try to reach into the right, they have no idea how to bring in more Democratic voters without disturbing their own personal interests. So they've decided to target the group that does vote, people on the right. So instead of trying to get the people that don't vote or the lazy Democrats to come out and vote, they're like, well, let's just see if we can't steal some of the votes from the right. Yeah. And it did not work.
No, it did not.
Turns out they hate gay people a lot more than we thought. Oh, boy.
So where does this leave us? Well, it leaves us with a very politically active FCC. And let's we'll go over a few of the greatest hits so far, because you may have missed them. There's been a lot going on. Starting with back in January, the FCC opened an investigation into NPR and PBS, those dastardly organizations.
Oh yeah, can't have that. Got to clean up Sesame Street. The crime on Sesame Street's unreal.
Yeah. And so what it actually stemmed from was that he believed that NPR and PBS broadcasts could be violating federal law by airing commercials. Both of the networks' executives say that their advertising complies fully with the FCC's current regulations. Again, though, it's not about commercials. This is, as we'll see, it's networks that are critical of the administration.
Yeah, gear, wrench.
Yeah. So probably the most well-known one at this point is CBS, going after CBS. And this is, you might have heard about the 60 Minutes, the scandal around 60 Minutes.
I did not, actually.
Okay.
I would like to hear about that.
So 60 Minutes aired a clip. This is back during the election.
Okay.
They did a interview with Kamala Harris, and they edited it down for time. And in one broadcast, they used the first part of her answer. Now, this was a question, I believe, about Gaza. And it was the answer wasn't even good, but she in one broadcast they used the first half of her answer, and in another program, they aired the second half of her answer. And this is pretty standard. Now, you've edited news.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty standard to edit an answer. And especially, like a long answer down to just kind of the punchy parts, the interesting parts for the listener. So that's what they did. But because they kind of aired both parts of her answer separately, it became a conspiracy that 60 Minutes and CBS was, trying to make her sound better, and that they were interfering in the election.
Leslie Stahl missed an adrenochrome shot that morning and messed up.
So, of course, Trump demanded that the network should lose its license over the story. There's no evidence, though, of any kind of journalistic malpractice. This is just stuff that happens in the newsroom every single day. So Carr's response to this, when people started asking him questions about CBS, was that all options remain on the table, including the death penalty, and that's his words, not mine, of the network's broadcast license, which would be an insane thing to do over what is basically nothing at all.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. This is all jawboning. And what I mean by that, if you've not heard the term jawboning, is it's a governmental term for kind of using governmental authority to intimidate, to get what you want without actually using the legal levers, right? Because if CBS fought this, the FCC would get laughed out of court. It's not a thing. But they still won, right? It's because the corporate owned media doesn't want necessarily this kind of trouble with the government.
Yeah.
So now we might be seeing a kind of muzzled version of 60 Minutes going forward that may not report as much on the federal government, right? There's been a slew of resignations among the staff that work on 60 Minutes because they don't feel that they are able to do the programming that they want to do and should be journalistically free to do going forward, because CBS is just kind of caving to these things. They don't want to fight the administration.
And if you look at the last 8 months, you could pull up pretty much any of the big ones, newspapers, different things. There's other people doing kind of editorials on their way out the door that feel similarly. So this is like not a localized incident.
Yeah, but he went after NBC as well, saying after they've reported on the mistakenly deported Kilmar Abrego Garcia and some of the other networks, saying that they could be in similar trouble to CBS. Carr said that his justification for this was that since broadcast outlets have exclusive access to their slice of public airwaves, their content must be in the public interest. Again, hey, there's that public interest. If they don't like that, he said, they can be podcasters. Which, again, why are we catching so many strays?
I mean, hey, look, it's kind of like the not all men thing. Like, I'm certainly not going to say not all podcasters. There's some garbage monsters out there, but yeah, it hurts a little bit, especially coming from him.
Yeah. He's also been looking into YouTube TV, whether or not it discriminates against faith-based channels, and so you can just see that Carr he's a guy with a lot of energy, certainly, and he's really trying to reshape the media landscape in the United States, and doing so in a way where questioning the administration, questioning the president, is a very bad idea, and this is very obviously hugely undemocratic. Just in case anyone was wondering about that. There are very few guardrails left to the Trump administration, right? We've seen the failure of the checks and balances throughout the legislative branch. We've seen the Supreme Court fail to really uphold the Constitution to this point. Journalism, and I get it, no one likes journalists. We're not that likable. It's okay. No offense. However, that is one of your few remaining guardrails in American democracy. Yeah. And it's just kind of scary to see. Now, before we end, we should think about kind of where this is going. And it actually might get a fair bit worse.
Don't say.
Yeah. The reason for that is Carr has been able to do this and wield this much influence and cow huge networks without actually doing anything. It's all threats. It's all, I will make your life expensive if you don't play by the new rules. And for these media companies who are of course, like any other, beholden to their shareholders, they find that antithetical, right? Like they don't want any part of actually defending the journalists, the news crews that they hire, right?
Oh, they get rich by caving, so why not?
But Carr, he's definitely trying to bend traditional media to his will. But that's not his only goal. In Project 2025, if you have the misfortune of reading his chapter, he really wants to go after big tech. And this was written, of course, before Trump took office, right? So this was the day where big tech was still kind of pretending to be very progressive.
When was it written? Like 2014, 2013? Then?
Oh, Project 2025? I believe in the last year or so leading up to the election. So it was written by the Heritage Foundation, and they've actually been writing these things for ages. Yeah. It's just no one really paid attention before this.
But this election or the first Trump election?
Oh, sorry, this election.
This election,
yeah.
Okay.
So Project 2025 was written before this election.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's got a big bone to pick with Meta, with a lot of these social media companies, TikTok, those kind. And what remains to be seen is, does he want to break these, right? Because we've seen some antitrust action in the past.
Yeah.
Does he want to break them up? Does he want to kind of suppress their power? Because, of course, big tech has big money, so they have a lot of political power. Or does he want to do what he's done with traditional media, which is bend it into an apparatus of the state, of the Trump administration? And as soon as Carr gets his third Republican, he's got that wonderful majority, because the commission that heads the FCC, the commissioners, a lot of the things that they do are done as a group. And you need majority for that. And he doesn't have that right now. So in short order, what you could be seeing is Brendan Carr at the head of an aggressive FCC that doesn't just lobby threats and intimidation, but starts to actually create new rules around their telecommunications that are going to specifically target outlets, companies, any sort of media that they find they don't like. And so how will he rein in big tech? Will this assault on media continue? In all likelihood, it's probably only going to get worse from here. And sorry, I don't really have a good note to end on in this one.
No, it's fine. I think we can kind of tie this back into what we said, where my, only thoughts I ever had about the FCC for a long time were about how they kind of would show up and be like, hey, this is how you're supposed to show things on TV. This can't be shown on TV. And there was a bit of shaping what American culture was. And you think especially about like how TV shows changed from the 70s to the 80s and then into the 90s, and how they were trying to push certain boundaries, and certain things were starting to be shown on TV, and certain things were being said, and shows were paying FCC fines just to, get away with their vision. But it did come with this give and take of like, okay, well, we can't do this, but we can do this. And in that's not evil, like, but it's like, okay, I get it, we can't just be showing full frontal nudity all day on TV, like maybe we need to calm down. But it also inspires creativity in some way. And this is not that. This is not about a few guardrails and a few blocks that kind of force you to maybe rearrange the way you were doing something but still get your message out. This is about completely deleting your message to be replaced with the one they want.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a far more sinister version of the FCC than certainly the one that we knew or thought we knew from our childhood and younger days. And I will say, for anyone who's kind of wanting to know, like, what are the signs that this is going to continue, keep looking for Carr in the news. I'm sure the threats aren't going to be toned down, but if you're wondering about big tech, what they fear, it's actually limiting their protections. They're very specially protected, the American tech companies. Google especially has benefited from Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And what that does is just it shields platforms online from being held legally accountable for what their users post. Mm-hmm. So if you post something terrible on X or Meta or wherever, the platform is not responsible for what you have said.
Yeah.
If they go after that, things are going to be very, very interesting, because it means that those protections are going to break down, and it will allow the administration to find things amongst the billions and billions of posts that they don't like, that they can then threaten the platform over. So keep that in mind. Just wanted to add that at the end. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks.
Good night. Sweet dreams.
Thanks so much for listening. For myself and Josh, we hope to see you next week.
This has been a Haunted Mouse production. Cut that out.